Or if you want, Jeff, while you set up, you want Gail to start the recording and start doing.
Yeah,
roll call.
I can get it going.
Gail, can you hear us?
I can. The recording has started.
Okay.
All right, okay. Thanks, Gail. So we're here. I guess we'll start with the roll call.
Jeff Sims,
Here.
Mike Williams, Brian McCarthy,
Here.
Jonathan Scott,
Here.
Michael English is excused, Bob Fry. I think I saw him online. Bob is online, so is Anna Quinones. You guys can unmute yourselves if you like. Laura
Here,
Lenhart.
I'm online.
Great, thank you. Laura Lenhart,
Here.
Gina Du, Bob Campbell,
Here.
Jesus Peraza Garcia,
Here.
Frank Koffenauer,
Here.
Jay Collins,
Present.
Jennifer Malone or Melissa Leinhart.
Melissa Leinhart, present.
Thank you. Marcela Jimenez Ramirez,
I'm here.
Lama Alpha C. Okay, we need 9. I'm counting 8. Am I missing anybody?
That's what we count in the room, Gail.
Okay, if somebody else shows up, let me know.
We sure will.
Join them. Okay, so we're so short of one person right here. Yeah, okay. All right, well, as such, then we can't, well, let's see, we'll start off with public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to speak from the public, either in person or online? Give it a few seconds to make sure there's nobody coming online. Seeing any hands, not seeing any persons. So, okay, I guess we'll move on. Normally we'd be up for approval of minutes. We need a board to approve, but I guess at this time I'll ask, is there any comments on those that were published in the agenda back? Okay, so we'll put that on hold. If we get another later arriver, then we can vote to have those formally approved. So first up is our action item, the overview of the Access 2050 LRTP.
TAC, Sean Blum, your CPO staff director. In a moment, I'll invite our consultant up to speak on this topic, but I want to first read in Access 2050 long-range transportation plan itself. This plan represents more than 3 years of work that we have completed in-house and in collaboration with our partner agencies across the county and across the region. It identifies all of the needs that we've identified for improving our transportation system from maintaining infrastructure to safety, trails, and even others. With our revenue forecasts, we work very closely with our partners and with the public and with our board members to figure out how to optimize those investments so that we can generate the most positive net impacts with those dollars possible. We're looking forward to getting your feedback on the plan. And with that, I'll introduce our consultant that works with us to help prepare it, Jennifer Musselman of Wilson Associates.
Thanks, Johnny. Good afternoon, everyone. Very excited to share with you today, as Johnny said, what's been years in the making to get to the TPO's long-range transportation plan Access 2050. So Access 2050 was a collaborative process that followed federal and state requirements for long-range plans. It combined thank you. A data-driven needs assessment with extensive public outreach to ultimately get to a cost-feasible plan that is financially constrained. So it is realistic based on the revenues that we're expecting over the 20-year period. With today's presentation, we will be asking for people to recommend that the board open the 30-day comment period at their board meeting on Wednesday. Can you do something here?
Also, sorry, Jen.
Yeah, why don't we just hold on?
We lost the screen in the room, so we're just skipping that. So that's fine.
Are you guys muted in the room?
No, we are just trying to get the screen back on in the room. Just a second.
While we're at it, just make sure anybody in the room that is logged into the meeting on their device, that their device is muted and the speakers turned down. And also try not to put any cell devices on the podium when speaking to avoid feedback. Thank you.
And Lionel, can you see the screen now being shared?
Yes, it is back up now.
So today's action item, if you are able to vote with the quorum, like I said, is to recommend that the board open the 30-day comment period on Wednesday. And then this will go for formal adoption at the hearing on October 6th. So the number of surveys that were received during the outreach period, over 4,500, is a big testament to all of the TPO staff time to get out into the community and interact directly with residents. And you can see almost 90% of survey takers were either Hillsborough County residents or employees. So they were able to reach the right folks to weigh in on the plan and the folks that travel our streets every day. Staff went to 45 events, did 11 presentations, and rode the bus 5 times to get folks that are either riding the bus or at the transfer centers. And you can see on the map, the stars represent where those different events took place. And then the colors are the surveys that were received, with the purple and yellow being a higher number of surveys, and then the green being lower number of surveys. But overall, heard from every corner of the county and went to a lot of efforts to make sure that staff were engaging in all parts of the county. The top 3 priorities that were heard as part of the public outreach. The first was newer, faster transit. The second was reduce traffic jams. And the third was maintain and repair roads and bridges. And so you'll see how that input was carried through the cost feasible plan in the later slides. There's a lot of components that go into the cost feasible plan, and Elizabeth and her consultant team presented to you all in August. So some of these slides will look familiar, starting with an assessment of growth forecasts for the 20-year period. TPO also participated in an environmental consultation workshop in May to try to understand some of the environmental considerations with some of the new roadways and widened roadways projects. And then in the following slides, we'll get into the needs assessment and revenue forecast. The needs assessments were broken into 5 categories. These are the same as the 2045 long-range transportation plan. So the first is smart cities, which is intersection improvements, and then technology improvements to mitigate congestion across the county. State of good repair and resilience, which looks at maintaining our roads, bridges, and stormwater infrastructure and good repair, as well as the transit fleet. Vision Zero, which is improving safety and reducing the number of crashes and crash severity across the county. Real choices when not driving, which focuses on transit service and trails. And then major projects, which are going to be the widening projects, interstate projects, and interchanges. The TPO worked with FDOT to estimate the revenues that would be expected over the 20-year LRT period. And so we're expecting almost $18 billion to come to the TPO area. This assumes that all taxes that are currently in place get renewed, with the exception of the second local option fuel tax. So there are 4 taxes that will be up for renewal. And so it seemed unrealistic to assume that all 4 would get renewed during the LRT period. So that one was left out to be a little conservative. The revenues are largely allocated based on current trends. This was based on feedback from committees, board, and the public survey. It's worth noting that FDOT has a majority of the revenue, and so that's partly why that major projects in green are so large. A lot of those are FDOT projects. Local funding is allocated primarily towards good repair and resilience, and then real choices when not driving, which is reflective of what we heard as part of that public survey. Well, $18 million sounds like a lot of money, and as Johnny mentioned, the TPO is certainly committed to making use of every dollar that comes our way. The plan ultimately identified almost $50 billion in needs. So TPL and its planning partners are going to continue to have to be creative with funding, look for grant opportunities to supplement the dedicated revenues that we're expecting as part of the plan. So I want to share what ultimately went into this draft cost feasible plan. Most of this is the same from what you saw in August, so I won't go into it in a ton of detail, but mostly focused on changes since last month. So the first big set of projects is the strategic intermodal system projects. These are FDOT projects that focus on the interstate, interchanges, and then a couple of windings on Signal 60 and then the Candy Bridge. The one change here, it's not in the cost feasible list per se, but the I-75 at Fort Hamer interchange was added to the unfunded needs list to allow flexibility to study that in the future, but the cost feasible projects remain the same. The non-SIF state roadways are also the same since the last time you saw them, which include a handful of widened needs across the county. There was one change to the local projects list, and that was that Lithia Pinecrest is now included in the cost feasible plan. So you can see it, the diagonal line in blue there. It's been added to the map. And then for the fixed guideway transit projects, it remains the arterial bus rapid transit from downtown to USF. And while it looks like it's the only project moving forward, I do want to note that the streetcar extension is also advancing, but it has been advanced into the TIP. So that's why it's not shown here in the cost feasible plan. And then with the other programmed funds, still expecting a lot of benefits to come through these programs with almost 50% reduction in peak hour delay, the ability to maintain our bridges and roads in a good state of repair, looking at a 55% reduction in pedestrian and bicycle crashes, 35% reduction in total crashes, over 40 new miles of trails, and then to be able to provide transit service at least every 30 minutes to 65% of the county funds that are included on range plan. So I, along with TPO staff in the room, are happy to answer any questions that you have about the plan, but this is the recommended action if you're able to take a vote today.
Okay, thanks. Looking at your action to accept the plan or accept the opening for comment period.
To accept the draft to board, the draft to the board and over the comment period. So this will not be the final plan. The final plan will go before the board next month at the October.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, thank you. So do we have any questions or comments? Yes.
This is Marcela with the Health Department. Is it safe to say that from out of all the priority that were found in the assessment, Vision Zero would be the one that is more focused with safety and improving walkability and those aspects, or?
Improving safety, yes. Walkability shows up a couple of places. It would show up in Vision Zero, but it would also show up in choices about driving as part of the trails expansion.
Real choices, and how much of the funding would be allocated to those priorities? I think I saw 4.2% for Vision Zero. And the reason why I ask is because with the health department, we are also conducting a community health assessment since last fall. And we've been having several or a lot of feedback from community members throughout the county in regards to safety, in regards to walkability and having roads more pedestrian friendly. Like it sounds like Hillsborough County is more it'll be easier if you have a car, but if you don't have a car, it's hard to become active and go out for walks and all that. It sounds like the majority of the funding is gonna be allocated toward other priorities, not necessarily to those priorities related to, being a county that is gonna be friendly in terms of walkability and pedestrian friendly.
Yeah, and I think you just have to weigh in. The major projects will also likely include walking, biking improvements. So there's some overlap in the buckets. And then I think it's safe to say that every project will consider safety. So every dollar spent will be aimed at reducing safety. That's just a specific pot for the Vision Zero projects.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcelo. Do we have other comments? Questions? I know we've been seeing precursors to this, for several meetings over the last, how long has this been going on now, would you say, that you've been formulating this report?
3 years total, but for the past year and a half, we probably every single one of the technicals. So we have been 6 or 7.
Right, so I know we've chipped away at this from our end of it, so hopefully, things have been referenced. It seems fairly similar to how much, I guess, difference from the 2045 was it? I mean, it seems like the layout and the buckets are similar and it covers, most every aspect. I see we've added stuff like lithium pinecrest and so forth.
We decided not to fix what isn't broken.
Right.
Not to say that there isn't room for improvements for the 2055 plans. So along the way, we've been kind of identifying areas that could be either simplified or amended for the next LRTP effort, but this is somewhat reflective of the approach we took for 2045 and 2040. The major exception being that with the revenues forecast as they are, we had to make a lot of, we were facing a lot of decisions about how to fund with limited amount of revenue for 2045. With the sales tax revenue that we anticipated, it was much easier to make decisions because we weren't faced with either have this or not. And that was one of the more difficult challenges that we had for the 2050.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure that was a huge obstacle to overcome. So I mean, I appreciate the effort that must have been to try to have everything contained. So I know it's difficult. So and it's also when you talk about these AR projections. So that's always a difficult thing looking that far ahead. But again, my opinion is what you've done appears sound. It has been in all the prior years. So I don't have any comments other than just to, any specific concerns I had, I think I've already expressed those in prior meetings about what's coming up. So. Anybody else? Okay.
Wait, yeah, I got a comment. I'm just,
About.
yeah. And Johnny, we've talked about this before. I just want to reiterate, in past years, we had specific meetings on the LRTP that allowed us to dig in much more than this year. And I prefer those meetings that we had that were dedicated to the LRTP. The last go around in the 2040 as well. I just feel it's very hard to dig in on these little presentations and then, peck and try to find through the agenda where the documents are and stuff like that. But we've discussed this before and I just want to get it on the record. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else? Okay, so we're looking for a motion as shown on the screen. So Bob, do you want to make a motion?
No, I have a question.
Oh, Bob, your question.
We have a quorum now, if you want.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Should have made that for the public record. So, we now have, additional, that's okay.
Who came in?
Llama.
I'm sorry, Lamont. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yep, she came in partway through the presentation, so she heard the majority of it. So as such, I believe we have a quorum and can go forward with making the motion. Thanks for that. Okay.
Jonathan Scott, motion to move forward.
Okay, you want to state the motion just for the
It's
record?
recommended action for the draft access 2050 LRTP to the TPO board to accept and open the 30-day comment period.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jesus with the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. All right, before we jump to the next speaker, let's go ahead and do some housekeeping. We've already talked about the meeting minutes from last month. Can I get a motion to approve the August minutes?
Jay Collins, so moved.
We have a motion, a second.
Melissa Leinhardt, second.
Alyssa, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, no opposed. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to the 2024 roll forward to implement.
Good afternoon, TAC, Elizabeth Watkins, CPO staff. I'm here to present to you the 2024 Transportation Improvement Program Roll Forward Amendments. So what exactly is this amendment? It is an annual, somewhat administrative transportation improvement program amendment that essentially is set up to ensure consistency between the FDOT work program and the TIP. The FDOT work program is one of the most integral parts of the TIP when you think about the projects that are listed. And because there is a gap between when the work program is effective in July 1 and when the TIP is effective October 1st, we have to perform this roll forward amendment to ensure that both documents are consistent with each other. There are no surprises in this, so there's no new projects. Any project that is included in a roll forward amendment has been included in a previous TIP. This is just a diagram to kind of, again, illustrate that relationship between the FDOT work program and the TPO TIP. FDOT starts working now, honestly, for the next year. So the purpose of this amendment is just to sync everything up. So by October 1st, projects are in the TIP and can be authorized and can continue to move forward. So there are a number of projects in this package. There are 23 overall, 10 of which are transit, 2 are resurfacing, and then 1 safety, 1 capacity project, 1 signalization, and then 8 various. So there's some drainage projects, but the mitigation more smaller scale. And for the interest of time, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on any one of these projects, but we'll be happy to take questions on them afterwards. But as I mentioned, there are 10 transit projects in here. So a number of these are those formula programs that HART received. So the 5307, which is used for operating and capital expenses, as well as their 5339, which is only for capital projects such as replacing the fleet or updating some equipment. HART has been very successful in being awarded discretionary grants. So the last 5 on this table are those discretionary grants. So they won 1 for transit-oriented development to assess development of stations along the Florida Avenue arterial BRT corridor. They also won Human Trafficking Innovations in Transit Public Safety grant. That's actually already been complete. They did a nice human trafficking awareness campaign around the Super Bowl in 2021 was in Tampa. So it's really only in this amendment package for project closeout purposes. Additionally, there was $1 million awarded from the state to HART for an interim improvement on their heavy maintenance facility to apply a new code. And then lastly, the passenger ferry grant that was awarded to HART a few years ago, that is continuing to roll over. Just to kind of break up the tables, here is a map of the proposed heavy maintenance facility. HART still, I think, needs to raise about $120 million to have this vision ultimately implemented, but here is an updated schematic of what they are envisioning. Some circulation improvements, fixing some of the site constraints that currently exist today. Then the last bit of the transit projects are 4 different projects that ultimately fund HART's bus stop and capital improvement program. Jesus can correct me on this, but I believe there were just shy of 3,000 bus stops in HART's service network. And there is a robust program called the Basic Transit Infrastructure Program, where they inventory and assess the conditions and any sort of improvements that need to be made throughout the system. So about $2 million or $20 million of projects rolling forward to address those needs. And these are just 2 images of some recent good work that HART has done. You can see on the image on the left, some curb and gutter and ADA improvements for their stop at Rome and Hillsborough, and then the installation of a new shelter at 30th and Hillsborough. There is one capacity project in this roll forward. It's for the I-4 project from Selma Connector to east of Branch Forbes Road. About $33,000 needs to be rolled in for right-of-way purposes. I believe there was a willing seller, so FDOT needed to make that change for one or a few of the parcels along the corridor. And ultimately, what this project envisioned is adding 2 express lanes in each direction. And this project is part of TV Next, specifically Section 8, that goes from the Selman to Eastern. And this is a typical cross-section with the 4 express lanes and then the 6 general purpose lanes. And this will preserve the potential future rail in the as has been discussed over the years. Also, it will continue to do that. The next set of projects are those resurfacings. So there is one resurfacing project along Kennedy. It's about $14.6 million to finish up utilities and construction. And then the second project is for Washington Street within the city of Tampa. I believe this was a state appropriation for $4 million to get that project underway. There's one new gate installation at Wiggins Road South. It will be updating the signal with some LED lights and some additional safety improvements at this gate. So some funding is allocated to that. There's also a signalization project at 22nd Avenue at the Selman Expressway intersection. I believe the signal has actually already been installed. But there's some stuff that needs to happen on the back of the house to account for an appropriation to shift these funds around. So this project is largely complete, but for project closeout and administrative purposes, it's included in this roll forward amendment. This is just that laundry list of that 8 various projects. Again, wetland mitigation, drainage. There's a project for the airport and port, so not traditionally surface transportation, but things that are incorporated in FDOT's work program that need to be consistent with the TNP. The TPO followed its public involvement procedures, and 3 weeks before the TPO board meeting, we issued a press release and a social media post, and it has its own dedicated website with the materials that you've seen today and that are in your packet. So the recommended action is for the TAC to consider recommending that the TPO board approve the roll forward TIP amendments to the fiscal year 25 to 29.
Yep, thanks, Elizabeth. Can you go back 2 slides to the list of the other projects? Yep. Sorry, I just was browsing over there trying to absorb where they were. The wetlands mitigation jumped out at me at first. A lot of the last 3 are those also, is that something?
Well, that's what I was wondering, if that's a South Tampa canal, or is that a canal running through the industrial north of the airport?
It's the Henry Canal. I believe it is near the airport. I know. I can look into that, but I'm almost positive it's near the airport, but it is the Henry Canal. It's on the map, and there's some drainage improvements that continue to happen along that. So.
The canals north of the airport running out to town and country and then beyond are really interesting, that we don't take advantage of those for trails. And every time one of these canals shows up on that for engineering, it always makes me wonder if it means they're going to dig into the bank, which means that they're widening the trail or widening the canal because you need it for the drainage purposes. But at the same time, it'll obliterate the use of a trail ever along some of the canals without right of way going into people's backyards. So.
I know some TPO staff have looked into that, so I'll get with our trail planner and see. I know it's been explored before, but I'm not aware of anything particular for these projects along the Henry Canal.
Yeah, I just know drainage seems to be highlighted more, right, with the recent rains. And I know I was out of town for a week and drove through on Dover Road, and there was like area underwater, I guess, and that was just one part. I know town and country can be a lot worse out Tampa, so anytime drainage improvements come up, it seems like an area that should be highlighted. So All right, do we have any other questions or comments on the topic?
One question.
Yes, Brian.
Just for the passenger ferry grants, how much longer does that go to, or how much longer is that grant good for?
So, that was a discretionary grant that part one, as you can see, is about $6 million. And, I don't believe Hillsborough County anymore is like the lead, and I think, or Jesus, if you'd like to address this.
Yeah, I can help. So the county is not pursuing that anymore. We were just, part was just, like, we were the recipient because the county could not get that money directly from FTA. It had to be hard. But the county said they don't want to do that anymore. So we have returned the money to FTA. It has not officially been accepted back, but we already made the request to return it. However, it has to stay here until the money is officially returned.
And he said maybe there's still a possibility of it being repurposed for buses,
That's a good question.
maybe.
Maybe.
All right, any other comments, or questions? Okay. All right, so we're looking for a motion for approval.
Jay Collins, recommend make a motion to recommend to the TPO approval of the roll forward amendment fiscal year 25-29 to.
Thank you. Got a second from Jesus. So any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Elizabeth? Okay, the last action item is the cost feasible plan update and letter of comment. I never remember if it's CIS or SIS. I never want to say that. Is it CIS or SIS?
We can call it either way.
Oh,
I call it annex policies.
okay.
So good afternoon. This is Vishal Rashid from the staff. And there is no actual presentation on this one. I would just like to bring to you that this presentation is mainly for asking you to approve the letter of comment for the FDOT SIS cost feasible plan that was approved by FDOT in July. So last month, if you recall, FDOT had presented the SIS cost feasible plan, which is the plan for all the SIS roads, major roads within the state of Florida. And it is a 25-year plan, which goes from 2025 to 2050. The cost feasible plan in particular is what the projects that are cost feasible for the outer years, which are from 2035 through 50. So those projects were presented to you last month by FDOT. If you want to take a look at it, I have those mapped. But today I'm going to be just bringing the letter, which is also included in your agenda packet, I believe, and where this, as staff, we had to review this cost feasible plan and find its consistency with regards to our TIP and our long range transportation plan, and recommend FDOT to include any additional comments for as they develop the plan for the next cycle. So let me just quickly highlight some of the projects that are included in this letter. The first project was I-275 from north of Hillsborough to Beers. This is a major north-south corridor that is also a critical evacuation route. So TPO staff request that FDOT District 7, Hillsborough TPO, and the mutual partners study the feasibility of fixed guideway project operating within this corridor. There was the TMA had expressed support for regional rapid transit operating within the 275 corridor. And this project gives a valuable opportunity to be revisited at that time. So that's for the first project. This project, also please note that this project is included in our TIP from 25 to FY 25-29, but it is not currently funded for design and construction. The next project is I-275 from north of Howard Avenue to Hillsborough River. This project is also in the TIP FY 25-29, and it is not currently funded for construction. It is in the BD&E phase. So for this project, District 7 staff had a public meeting
And we request that the B7 staff continue to coordinate with the TPO so that we could meaningfully consider the state of technology and lane management strategies for this project prior to implementation. There were various other interchange modifications at Bears Avenue, Bush Boulevard, Fowler, and Fletcher, and these were presented to you in the earlier presentation for the 2050 cost feasible project. For these projects, these are within some of the most high crash locations at the interchanges, particularly at Bush, Fletcher, and Fowler. And the interchanges do have some history of high-profile wrong-way collisions at the ramps. And the TPO recommends that this interchange may benefit from additional safety improvements and technology implementation. The other projects that I can quickly mention are an interchange modification at Mango Road, McIntosh Road, where the TPO supports diverging diamond. Also at the Gibsonton Drive, which is in the 2045 LRTP and also in the TIP. There is no current construction funding for it. Some of the other projects that the staff looked into are I-4 managed lanes. That's one of which is a Selman connector to Branch Forks, east of Branch Forks Road to Pole County Line Road. And the District 7, we recommend that the District 7 staff continue to coordinate with the TPO staff to have meaningful consideration of technology as they study the lane management strategies to incentivize alternate fuels, transit usage, and other high occupancy vehicles on this corridor. Let's see. There are various other projects on this corridor, including I-75. Two part of that studies. One is from US 301 to north to Bruceby Downs, and I-75 from Ante County Line to US 301. State Road 60 from Dover Road to 39. These don't have any construction funds. Another major project that I want to point out is the US 41 from south of Manola Point, Madison Avenue to south of Causeway. The TPO would like to get additional details on this project and recommends coordination with the CSX grade separation project. And there is another project on US 41 that the TPO would like to request FDOT that they coordinate. The Gandy Bridge connection is another project from Selman Express connector to Pinellas County. And this would also require additional coordination with DIA. This because the Gandy Bridge is also a vulnerable project for storm events, and we recognize that this needs to be evaluated for other wave attenuation devices. In general, the TPO finds that the other projects, which are under three major categories according to our LRTP, one of which is safety, travel time reliability, and vulnerability to sea level rise. Some of the projects under safety, which came out of our high injury network and our TPO's vision action plan, are Veterans Highway, State Road 60, Brandon Boulevard, and these projects have a highly significant crash concern. So there are other various segments on I-275 and I-4, which are also among some of the worst corridors for safety. And the TPO recommend that FDOT consider some safety measures as we make progress towards Vision Zero. For the travel time reliability, this definitely affects our travel time consistency, making them as some of the least reliable roads. These came out of the needs assessment for the LRTP. Some of the roads that were identified are I-4 between McIntosh and Branch Forks, I-275 downtown to West Shore Interchange, SR60 from I-75 interchange to Dover Road, US 75 from I-75 to Fisher, and I-75 from State Road 60 Brandon to Bloomingdale. These are the TPO recommends that the FDOT consider some travel demand management strategies and operational TSO treatments as they study the problem projects for the next cycle. And for the vulnerability for sea level rise, these projects are either on or near the CIS roads. In particular, I would like to mention West Shore Boulevard near the airport and Madison Avenue from US 41 to 301. which needs to be considered for some vulnerability treatments such as pavement hardening, stormwater enhancements, and wave vegetation. Another project that we would like to mention is the Port River interchange, which is in the LRDP funded unfunded needs list. And it would be recommended that it be included in the this cost feasibility plan for the next cycle. So with this, I request you to recommend approval of this letter, which will be presented at the TPO board meeting in the next 2 days. And this will go to FDOT for transit.
Okay, thank you, Vishaka. So, all the plan, I'm just trying to get an understanding, all the plans that you initially went through, were they in the draft of the SIS? And you're just kind of, we're endorsing them, we're adding comment, or is there any, were they new things that we were adding?
No, it's not. It offers this plan that
Okay.
DOT has been developing since 2020, I believe. So it is approved by at the central office. And we are only like adding our comments, and also we had requested the committees to send in their additional comments or to include in the letter. So this is mainly reflecting all that we need for this workout day to be prepared for the upcoming plan.
Okay. All right, do you have any other questions or comments, Bob?
Is everything consistent with adopted documents that's in this letter? So what I'm hearing.
Was your question?
Yeah, I just corrected her. Is everything consistent with adopted documents?
It is consistent, but these were some of the additional comments that we had, which I read out to you.
Well, what are the additional comments staff, which have not have been approved by the board yet? It's in the letter. You said additional comments.
The only additional projects that we recommended them to look at were not included in the SIS. They were under the safety, travel time reliability, and the vulnerability category, which and again, this is just, we are just recommending them to look at additional safety and operational treatments on these corridors. Is that what you're looking for?
Is this a staff letter or?
This is a staff letter.
It's only a staff letter.
I'm sorry?
It's just from the staff to DOT.
Staff and any comments that we, which were reflected from the committees.
Okay, is this letter going to be presented to the board?
Yes, and the board will approve this letter signed by the executive director and sent to you.
The TPO board.
I understand.
Yeah. I was just going to say, because it goes, this went through all of the committees. All the committees got to have their 2 cents into it. And then it went through your staff because of additional things that were put into it for comments for certain projects. The letter is then drafted, goes back out to the committees so that the committees can all basically sign on to it to say, yes, we support the comments, send that to the TPO board so that the TPO board can then sign on to the letter. Yeah.
And what's the date of this letter? It's dated September 11th.
The date is as of the TPO board date for this month, which is September 11th.
Okay.
Yeah, this Wednesday.
Are we the last committee to
Yeah,
look at?
last committee.
Okay. I'm glad to see that you've added some other things for consideration that's, beyond what was. I think that's relevant to have them, at least to have exposed it prior, so if it comes up again, you can comment that we tried to make you aware of it in the past. Any other comments?
Just note that this is cost feasibility plan is updated every 2 to 3 years, I believe. But this time it has been a longer cycle due to whatever reason that we had COVID and so this is coming to you maybe after. Yes, definitely.
Okay, so I got a little confused at the beginning. So are you looking for, is it an action item that you're looking for a motion? Okay, to approve the letter?
Itself.
Okay.
The plan is already approved for by the department. This is just the letter as a response to.
Okay, I have a question. We're advisory, not approved, right?
Well, this is just, I think, approval, submittal of the letter to the board, who would then send it out.
So motion would be to recommend the letter to the board for consideration to approve.
Exactly.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we're not approving
We're
it.
not approving anything.
Yeah,
Okay, that's actually, well, if you'd like to make the I agree with you. If
No,
you'd like
no,
to
no,
make the
I'll
motion that way, I think.
But we just don't have,
yep.
So it's not necessarily approval, it's like recommending forwarding of the letter
Mhm.
to, maybe it's a better way to say it, just to be.
Okay.
I don't mean, so, but we probably need to word it that way. So who wants to make the motion?
Jay Collins recommend forwarding the letter to TPO board for consideration.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Jesus with the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Bishaka. All right, and last scheduled item is the FDOT High Injury Network Social Marketing.
Spit that up on a messy sample. Share, see here.
Is somebody outside trying to be presenter?
There's someone in the room, but it is not showing in Teams.
Are they logged into the meeting?
Yeah, they're in the room, like Bashaka was.
Are they presenting from the podium
Yes,
and the presentation's not on the podium?
it is on the podium. It's just not sharing through this system. So all we're seeing is the Teams squares. And we have the presentation up on the laptop on the podium.
Make sure that on the hover cam, you're set as presenter. Nothing should have changed from
I know, that's the funny part.
yeah, I'll try and get a hold of Mike to see if he can come in there for a second.
Okay, maybe.
We're seeing it online now.
Yep, you're up and running now.
Technology can be found the same. Let's see, that changes, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mr. Duran with the Florida Department of Transportation Safety Office. I'm here with my colleague, Sarah Hendricks from the University of South Florida Center for Urban Transportation Research. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with you all today on this project that we have been working on for a year, about a year or so, a little bit over a year. This kind of originally
the genesis of this was with, through the Hillsborough MPO, TPO that allocated, federal funding for, DOT to be able to conduct an educational outreach, targeted towards pedestrian bicyclists, but we also saw the opportunity to also target, drivers as well, because they're also, you know, they're also one of our road users. So, we were able to wrap up this project after a year, and we're ready to share with you all some of the results of this. Let's see if I can do this. So I'm the project manager, I'm Duran, and Julie Bond is our project manager with the Center for Urban Transportation Research. But as I mentioned earlier, Sarah will be presenting for her today. This project was targeted towards the high injury network that was identified in the Vision Zero plan put together by the TPO. And we took a few of those corridors from there. It's a combination of county roads as well as DOT state roads. And we took these roads and we did about 7 of them, and which we will show later on the presentation. And we conducted an educational outreach. We will talk a little bit more in detail about to the presentation. But this is all in accordance with the safe system approach, which is this is the approach that has been adopted by the Florida Department of Transportation, the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, and also as part of Target Zero, which is the department's target for to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on all highways to zero. I'm not gonna go into explaining the safe system approach. I see some heads here. You've seen it. You know what it is. So this is all kind of just a strategy in combination with that. Let's see if I can play some audio here. So part of the the project was doing a podcast, and Johnny actually participated with us, and Gina participated with me, and Sarah and Julie on recording a podcast to talk about what is the high injury network, what this project is about. And I think I want to play a little bit of a clip. I'm sorry, Johnny, I know you might not want to hear you.
Yeah.
It's like it's trying to page.
Well, I'm not sure if you're on. Again, I don't want to make any mistakes, but we got some.
It's pretty much talking about what the high injury network is. You know, we all know it's high-speed roads, lack of facilities, you know, roads historically been, you know, affected by you know, the lack of infrastructure or just driver behavior, pedestrian and bicycle behavior, or the lack of infrastructure. And I think this is where you take over, Sarah. Sure. So I'll pass it on to Sarah Hendricks, who will talk about the rest of the project.
Thank you, Emmett. I'm Sarah Hendricks. I'm with University of South Florida, Qatar. And so these high injury networks or HIN corridors, they're corridors with clusters of severe injuries and fatalities. Most fatal crashes are on roads posted for 40 miles per hour or higher. There's one of the HIN corridors that is posted 30 miles per hour. The other ones are higher speed roads. And then there's aggressive driving, distracted, intoxicated driving are some of the major factors in these crashes. So our project timeline, we started in February of 2023. These are the tasks that we undertook. The task 1 was a situational analysis where we went out into the field. We also did a literature review. And based upon our findings, we developed the campaign. We pre-tested the campaign messaging. Then we implemented the campaign starting in September of 2023. And as we were implementing the campaign, we were also collecting information through a traffic safety quiz, which was part of the monitoring and evaluation. So the monitoring and evaluation piece started concurrently and ran from September 2023 through April 2024. And we just recently wrapped up the project. So this map shows the HIN corridors. The number one is 50th Street and 56th Street from Martin Luther King Boulevard to Hillsborough Avenue. The second one is 56th Street from, let's see, it's Sly to Bush Boulevard. The third one is Adamo Drive, State Route 60 from Orient Road to Falkenberg Road. Then there's Florida Avenue from Waters Avenue to East Bougainvillea Avenue. There's Nebraska Avenue from Columbus to East Hannah. And there's also Sheldon Road from Hillsborough Avenue to Waters Avenue. And then 15th Street from Fowler Avenue to Fletcher Avenue. And so we started out with a literature review. And the purpose of that is to glean insights and lessons learned from safety campaigns that have been done before, to learn from these other campaigns what works well, what doesn't work well, and what could we borrow from these other campaigns. We looked at primarily campaigns that were intended for large audiences. So we were looking at campaigns that may have used things like billboards, digital ads, TV, radio, print, social media. And so the literature review, it's in the final report. It's chapter 2. It goes into a lot of detail about the findings of the literature review. There's abstracts of selected studies that we thought had particular insights. And so there's many takeaways from the campaigns. These are just a few of them that we, some of which that we used. I'm just going to focus on the first one here, which is what we know is stronger campaigns tend to focus on specific identified behaviors. And so we looked specifically at speeding. We know that speeding is a major cause of crashes, and speeding management is part of the safe systems approach. So we concentrated on encouraging people to slow down. And then we would segment the audience. What is the particular audience that we want to look at? Based upon our situational analysis, we decided to concentrate on motorists. And then finally, the geography. We selected a particular geography, and these were the HIN corridors. So we were specifically targeting motorists that drove on these HIN corridors. These are several other ones that you can read in more detail in the literature review. Okay, so we had a situational analysis, which was an examination of the built environment and the target audience was performed for this. And part of this was going out into the field and specifically looking at these HIN corridors and to collect information from the field studies, from looking at reports and planning documents, stakeholder interviews, and also doing an analysis, a crash analysis aided by the Singapore Analytics. So this is an overview of the fatalities and severe injuries for a 6-year period on the 7 HIN corridors. This does not include crashes that were minor injuries or property. Let's see. So I gotta say, the length of these HIN corridors ranged from 1 mile to about 2.6 miles. So the next 14 slides in this slide deck go very in a lot of detail into all of these corridors. So there's an infographic for each one of these HIN corridors, and it is accompanied by a series of photographs that document the conditions of these corridors. It goes into a lot of detail of the conditions of the roadway, the operating conditions of the roadway, the characteristics of the crashes that took place on these roadways, and also the characteristics of the motorists and of other victims of crashes that were involved. And so in the report, these infographics are actually easier to read in the report. It's 2 panels on the page, so it's a lot bigger to read, so you can actually see the finer print. And there's many more photographs for each of these hands. One thing that's very important to know is that Julie Bond and Brenton Mosher went out to all of these corridors. They all drove each one of the corridor. They all rode public transit on each one of these corridors for those corridors that have public transit service. They walked all of these hidden corridors and they bicycled on these hidden corridors to understand personally what is it like to travel on these high entry network corridors. So we also did, prior to the campaign, a preliminary SWOT analysis. So SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this was a particular SWOT analysis, not only for the hints, so let me back up a moment. Part of the situational analysis was to do a SWOT analysis on each of the hints. So that information, that very detailed information is in the report as well. We also did this SWOT analysis on the Florida Department of Transportation. So strengths and weaknesses are internal to the Florida DOT, what FDOT can control. Opportunities and threats are external to the to FDOT, what they cannot control. But what we know about strengths are those are things that we can leverage in the campaign. The weaknesses are things that we can address. The opportunities are things that we can seek to capitalize on. And the threats are things that we can attempt to mitigate. So based upon all of this information, this informed the development of the campaign tactics that were used in this state campaign. One of the chief elements of the safety campaign was the use of geofencing, which is the development of a virtual boundary around each of the hidden corridors so that a motorist entering into this boundary would then receive a social media message. Yeah, and so these are the campaign tactics that were used. We used ITSA campaign messaging. And some of the results are the number of impressions served. Impressions are the number of times that a message is delivered to an individual recipient. And so there were over 20,000 people who clicked on the messages served. And as part of that, over 6,000 people chose to click on the link within the message that delivered a traffic safety quiz. The quiz was designed to be interactive and fun. And it was also a learning opportunity for the participants because you click on a traffic regulation question, you enter your answer, and then you click again, and then it tells you what the right answer is and why. So there was a lot of graphics, a lot of details. We also sent out mailers, neighborhood mailers, so these were postcards. We also did artwork on signal cabinets. These were signal cabinet wraps that featured depictions of people safely using the crosswalks. And so we followed up with a survey of pedestrians that were crossing in intersections on 3 different ends and asked them, what does this artwork mean to you? What is the message conveying? And we were very pleased to know that the pedestrians understood that it was conveying that they should use the crosswalks when they cross the street. We also conducted a couple of podcasts, and I'm going to, okay. So the selected survey response findings that I wanted to talk to you a little bit about come from the traffic safety quiz that we did. There was a follow-up survey that we administered to people from the traffic safety quiz that allowed us to contact them again. So that was over 600. We sent out a follow-up survey. We got about 233 back. And so some of the findings are the campaign reached an audience that was previously uninvolved in safety presentations. So these are safety presentations like walk, bike, drive, messages, bike smart, bicycle friendly driver. And we were really pleased by the response, the number of safety quiz surveys that we got back. It's an indication that the community is actually very interested and concerned with this. And it's telling us for future campaigns that there's an audience for this development. We also found survey respondents, we had a good spread of people across all different age groups. It did skew towards older people ages 55 and older. And what this tells us is for a future campaign, we may want to engage older community members as what we refer to as influencers or interveners. So that gets into the concepts of nurturing and developing a traffic safety culture in the community. And so people who are influencers are people whose opinions are important to the specific audiences that we're targeting. And interveners are people who are not afraid to speak up. So if I'm in a car, I'm driving, I have a passenger, and she has not put on her seatbelt, I feel comfortable and empowered saying, hey, would you please put on your seatbelt? So that's the concept of an intervener. We also found, we asked a question about participation in Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicle approved defensive driving courses. And we found that 62% have either taken or expressed interest in taking the defensive driving class. About 30% already did. And those people were motivated to take the defensive driving class because they were able to get reduced violation points off their driving records and also to secure discounts on their auto insurance premiums. So what this tells us is that there's a market and an audience to further push out the defensive driving courses to the community, encouraging people to take that defensive driving course. And we also know that incentivization works and it's important to include. So another key finding was, so most people are not offended by receiving a do not disturb text message response. So what we did was we posed a hypothetical situation to the quiz participants and we said, suppose you send out a text message to a loved one and you get back the text message that says, do not disturb. I will respond to your text message when I reach my final destination. How do you feel about receiving this do not disturb text message? And so it was kind of like a Likert scale response category, the options. Very glad, neither glad nor unhappy, unhappy, and very unhappy. And what we found, the response was 85% said they were either glad or very glad that this loved one was using the do not disturb text feature on their phones to make sure that they are driving undistracted. We had another 14% that were indifferent to it, and only 2% said that they were offended that they did not get an immediate response back. This is a very important finding because this is an example of a positive social norm that says it is okay and it's a good thing to use the do not disturb feature on your mobile device. So this tells us with campaigns moving forward, we need to push that. We need to encourage people to use this feature on their phones. It's free and it's easy to personalize. So you might think do not disturb is kind of a brusque message. You can personalize it to make it gentler. The other piece about this too is that the person who initially receives the text message, texting is it's a communication that is characterized by immediacy. And so when you receive a text message from a loved one, a family member or a loved one, you feel compelled to respond immediately. And we know this is the case based on some information and evidence that we gleaned from a previous project where we did formative research and focus groups on young males between the ages of 18 and 34. And we asked them about this, and they felt compelled to respond if they get a text message from a loved one. The audience needs to understand that it's okay to use that feature on your phone. So that's another audience and another message that needs to go out there, that they should avail themselves of that capability of their mobile device to do that, to reduce distracted driving. Another finding was that not all motorists know the reasons why bicyclists can take the full travel lane. So that question had 3 different response options on various reasons why a bicyclist might take the full travel lane. The correct answer was the 4th option, and that was all the above. So they were things like you need to make a left turn, you need to swerve around debris that's in the shoulder or in the bicycle lane, or you need to take the whole lane to make sure that you're seen. If the travel lane is really narrow, you want to make sure that the motorist doesn't think, gee, maybe I can squeeze around this bicyclist. You want to discourage that. So you may choose to travel, take the full lane while you're bicycling. And we know from a previous experience in May of 2024 in Pinellas County, it was reported in the newspaper, someone assaulted a bicyclist in Pinellas County for taking the full lane. And this particular facility was a low-speed road. It was marked as a shared lane. It was one of the coastal towns that are like tourist-oriented towns where a lot of people bicycle. We know that there's a certain number of motorists out there, about 15%, that don't understand how to interact with bicyclists. So this is a piece of information that's really important to continue to push out to the motoring public. How do you interact? How do you share your road with bicyclists? And then also, just 54% correctly identified the most common crash type between a motorist and a pedestrian. So this was the question on the quiz that we got the lowest correct response rate. So the answer to that question is when a motorist is turning right. Once again, going forward with future campaigns, we want to tell the motorists that it's important that when you're about to make a right turn at an intersection, you need to stop, first of all, no rolling stop. Not only, look to the left, but also you need to look to the right to make sure there's no pedestrian about to step into the crosswalk. Most motorists don't do that. They're looking to the left to see if there's cars coming this way. And then likewise, the pedestrian needs to understand that when they decide to enter into the crosswalk, they get the pedestrian signal that says, yes, you can go. They need to know to look to the left to see if there's any motorists about to move into their path on the crosswalk. When I'm out driving and I'm stopped at a signal and I watch the pedestrians, there's a lot of people that just pay no attention. The pedestrian signal turns, it's ready for them to walk, they step into the crosswalk, and they go and they don't look. They just assume that the motorists see them and are looking out for them, which we know is not necessarily true. And then lastly, we had a question on the survey. It was an open-ended question that asked, do you have any suggestions on how to make Hillsborough roads safer and more comfortable for all roadway users? And we got a lot of response, lots of suggestions. We did a content analysis on this, and we found that all of the responses were, you could categorize them in 7 major buckets, 7 major themes. And these were things like, increased law enforcement, increased traffic control like signals, increased outreach and education, increased highway capacity for motorists, strengthening multimodal options, increased maintenance of the existing system. So that's potholes and resurfacing and replacing lights that were burned out, and then adopting new regulations. So we looked at the quiz participants overall, and we knew that that group of people skewed older in age. And what we found was the suggestions that we received the most of tended to be number 1, law enforcement, and number 2, traffic control. Then we looked at the most vulnerable users. So the respondents to the traffic safety quiz, 75% of them were motorists, but we had 25% were vulnerable users, bicyclists, pedestrians, scooters. We had a wheelchair participant, and so on. We asked them this question as well, and their answers, what rose to the top, the most common answer they gave were answers relating to strengthening multimodal options and law enforcement. And then a last segment that we looked at, we pulled out all of the survey respondents that were aged 35 and younger. And we asked them the same question. We tallied their results. And once again, what rose to the top were strengthening multimodal options and traffic control. So it's interesting, if you look at different audiences, they have different preferences and different priorities. So to draw some conclusions, behavior change takes time. So this particular campaign that we conducted was only about a year long. And the actual messaging out there was from September through April or so. Very short-term campaign to expect behavior change results. Conduct detailed behavioral analyses, which is what we've done, and we've got a trove of information that we were able to glean from this campaign. Reinforce community engagement. We did a lot of that. And for example, along certain corridors, there were businesses that were interested in partnering. There was a Harley Davidson dealership on Elton Drive. They hosted events for motorcycle safety, for example, customized messaging, and then established clear evaluation metrics. So this is a display of the crash data for just the year 2023. Serious injuries and fatalities. And it looks pretty good. There's one fatality that was a bit of an outlier. That was actually on Sheldon Road. It was a toddler that strayed away from home at 3 o'clock in the morning and was hit and killed. So very unusual. Aside from that one fatality, there were no fatalities. With this particular campaign, we're not claiming causality. This was a very short-term campaign. So we are not claiming that our campaign caused these wonderful results of 0 fatalities. What we did find with this campaign is a lot of information that enabled us going forward to better tailor the messaging, knowing what to say and what audience needs to know to do to keep themselves safe. And then also drilling down to more specific audiences that need particular messaging. So we got a lot of really good information from this. So what I would suggest is, for example, high visibility enforcement campaigns are really effective, particularly in the short term. So, and they're very good, for example, at times of the year during holidays when you see spikes in crashes. And we know that if you see a law enforcement officer by the road, everybody slows down. Very short term. However, the motivation to slow down, it's not internal. It's more, well, I don't want to get a ticket, so I'm going to slow down. And so you probably all of you have noticed you're driving along a highway and everybody's going 5 to 15 miles per hour over the speed limit. You see a law enforcement car parked. Suddenly everybody slows down to the speed limit. And then about a half a mile beyond the law enforcement official, everybody speeds back up. What this is telling us is that speeding is a positive social norm. This is what we need to change. And this is not going to happen overnight. What we do know, if we look at NHTSA statistics, NHTSA has put out drunk driving campaigns for more than 20 years now. And if you chart the crashes for which drunk driving was a major factor, you see a downward trend. It's a statistically significant downward trend in the number of crashes that were caused by drunk driving. So what we're seeing here is it takes a long time to change traffic safety culture. It's a lot more socially unacceptable to drink and drive now than 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And there's a whole bunch of other kinds of campaigns outside of transportation that really inform what it takes to change behavior, any kinds of behavior. Smoking cessation is a good example. My parents' generation, everybody smoked. My generation, maybe 50% of the population smoked. My daughter's generation, it's socially unacceptable to smoke. But it took generations for that change to happen. It takes a lot of time, a lot of very involved messaging, and a lot of resources that are consistent and persistent over time to change traffic safety culture. And for what we're doing here, of course, we're taking a rare event and we want to make it even rarer and non-existent. But it takes a lot of resources and a lot of time, but we can do it. So with that, any questions? Yeah.
That was interesting. You're saying about the drunk driving or under influence. I actually think it's going up. There's a lot more people smoking marijuana now on a daily basis. It's actually going way up. I don't know if you guys took
Okay.
that or took that into consideration.
So I had looked at specific statistics from NHTSA that was specific to drunk driving. So maybe those statistics didn't include marijuana. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
But that's a good observation. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
I think that's gonna be the next generation of what alcohol was 40 years
Right.
ago, 50 years ago. It's becoming norm to drive and people don't think they're affected while their senses are dulled. And yeah, that's probably gonna take another whole cycle of generation, because I agree with you. I know for my son, daughter in their 20s, and like, it's not the same mentality as far as having some drinks at a bar and driving home. When I was, it was not that uncommon. We would do the designated drivers, kind of the new campaign that came out back in my day, and we tried to adhere to that, but there was plenty of people driving around. Now, especially with Ubers, it's like that's an expectation there. Oh, somebody's gonna grab an Uber and go home. It's made it really easy, and I think
Right.
at least in that generation, there's less. I don't know how across the board that is, but I know that's just my one, control group that I know about and witnessed. But yes, okay.
So, alcohol and drugs and everything, it goes back with, behavioral norms, social norms and everything else, which is primarily, it looks like what your study was about. I'm much more interested in how technology will affect those numbers that you had. I think it's very interesting. The car that I'm driving now, if I take my eyes off the road, it beeps at me. Right? So that is not your generation. Like our generation, we didn't have that. These are our first time that we have these. Our parents didn't have that. But yeah, we all remember being in a car in the rumble seat in the back with mom sitting up there smoking cigarettes, right? It was a thing. Everybody did it. So I'm wondering if that's the next step in some of these, is that, yeah, the behavior, you want to keep pushing on the behavior, but is it also that the automakers need to make sure that the technology is not supposed to be a technology package or the next package you go up? It should be an expectation, much in the same respect now that I'm assuming you cannot buy a car in the United States if it does not have seatbelts. So do we have in our lifetime something that will say it will be a requirement that you have lane departure and other things like that, so that if you are falling asleep at the wheel, the whole car is going to shake and wake you up?
Exactly. Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I feel like the evidence is still out on that. We have all these new technologies that perhaps make it easier for people to stop paying attention. So I'm not real sure. I don't know if it's going to be in totality a good thing or not. Definitely level 1. Level 5 is complete autonomous vehicles where you have absolutely no control whatsoever, which I kind of wonder if drivers are gonna like that. I think drivers really want in control, but it's those levels 2, 3, and 4 in the middle where you have to negotiate, okay, who's in control? The car, the technology, or me? And that's where you really have a lot of trouble.
Well, for Jonathan and I, we have to figure out how drunk and stoned we are to have that car pick us up, right?
That would solve that problem.
Uh-huh.
Well, the safe system approach includes safer vehicles. And one of my chief personal beefs is we've got all this technology, but we have cars that go 100, 120 miles an hour. And the advertising car manufacturers, they don't advertise at the cars as travel so much as they advertise cars for fun, power, speed, status. And so my question is, why are we allowing car manufacturers to create these cars that have the capability to go 120 miles an hour when we have posted speed limits that go no more than 70 in Florida? I know it's different out west, but there's some disconnect there that I think causes some friction and tension and perhaps some confusion by the public. What is it that they're expected to do? And that certainly makes it more difficult to develop campaign messaging and education that helps people understand and adopt speed management and going only the designated posted speed or less as the positive social norm. that makes it more difficult. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, this is a topic, I mean, it's obviously probably the most important topic we talk about with Division Zero and, trying to incorporate safety. So I'm sure it's one that we could probably spend hours if we had the time coming up with different prospects and ideas. I mean, you touched on a whole wide gamut of things, so I don't know, obviously we're limited here, but I certainly endorse and, appreciate your studies. Did you all study like I know you're talking about the police car, sitting there, but the signs where it like throws out how fast you're going and then people will slow down? Because I know I've caught myself and I didn't realize I was going 12, 15 miles an hour to speed limit and I backed off for a half mile and down my, I think maybe it was maybe 8 miles an hour. So I'm probably in that same genre, but I don't know how, if you evaluated how effective those are. But then you run into that, if you have too many, people start ignoring it,
Right, exactly. Of it, I've seen studies on it, and they're especially affected in school zones.
Right.
So they do have certain uses that they're really good for. Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, there's a lot of different areas. And then, on some of these corridors, you have to consider, what are the types of businesses there? There are a lot of bars and, places that are letting out where people might be more prone to be affected by extracurricular things they might have ingested. So, that can play into it, and that may be where law enforcement can assist, focusing on those areas, to try to keep people in line. But anyway, Marcel, would you have a comment?
Yes. Thank you for sharing your findings. And I agree with the comment on how concerned we all are with safety on our roads. This has been one of the emerging themes that we have identified in our community health assessment. We have had a series of focus groups and key informant interviews, and this theme keeps on emerging. So I wonder, this is great for informational purposes, but I wonder what are we gonna do with this information? I know that it was very time constrained and maybe it's not easy to influence individual behaviors such as, short amount of time, but I wonder if the social marketing team has any intention of going the next step or what would that look like, and if there is anything that the health department can help, we would love to. Because the next year, in 2025, we're gonna start doing the implementation plan where we're gonna try to come up with strategies to help address the needs that have been identified in the assessment. And we suspect that transportation, road safety, pedestrian safety is gonna be one of those areas that we're gonna focus. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what we have kind of done here is set the table for more campaigns that are better focused in regard to audience segmentation and messaging. And the manner in which we communicate to the public. I think there's a lot of work to be done that can be done that is very effective. Aside from this project, there are other projects that are being done. The Florida Department of Transportation State Safety Office, their Target Zero effort includes the development of a campaign that has also applied social marketing techniques, looked at a particular audience, which are males between the ages of 18 and 34, they are disproportionately represented in crashes, doing formative research, focus groups to understand what motivates them to drive in the way they do, and then put out messaging that is particularly focused and tailored to that audience. And so that work continues. There's a phase 2 that just got underway in January to continue to refine those messages and then also look at other targeted segments. So one of the things is the growing Hispanic population in the state of Florida. So that's a new target for phase 2 of messaging. So it looks to me like there's a lot of interest in it. The key is to fund these campaigns to keep them moving forward. Thank you.
No other comments? Then I very much appreciate your presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's our last scheduled item. I believe Okay, that's something you have info on.
Yeah, Lisa, are you able to give a little bit of information to the group about the Gulf Coast Safe Street Summit?
Yes, I pulled up my little whole week overview. So I'm very excited. Hi, this is Lisa Silva. I am the Vision Zero coordinator for the Hillsborough TPO. And so I participated in the High Injury Network social campaign. So I'm very glad that you guys were so interested in it. There's a lot in there. So what I'm going to share with you now is complements that. So we have to hit safe systems from all directions all the time with those redundancies. And so we host a regional conversation educating community partners on safety and Vision Zero. Hillsborough stepped in to host this year, so we will be having it on exactly 1 month from today. So today is the 1 month anniversary to the kickoff of it. So I have here a little shown you with the star is the summit. It's going to be on October 9th, 1 to 5. But we have optional mobile workshops featuring the Thea Selman Greenway and the Water Street area. So those optional mobile workshops with a separate registration start at 10 a.m. also on the 9th. And then everyone's going to be all fired up by the really extraordinary rock star guest speaker, Gil Penalosa. So immediately following, just a couple of blocks away, will be a networking function at the Tampa History Center. So I should let you know that Cruise Terminal 2 in the pedestrian multimodal downtown of Tampa is where we're hosting the Gulf Coast Safe Street Summit. It's right next door to the aquarium and along the free streetcar. So a lot of great synergy there to enjoy and participate in all of our mode choices in the downtown area. Because we did hire this Gil Penalosa, who is infamous for the 8 and 80s conversation. So if you design cities and roadways for an 8 or an 80-year-old, it's then going to be inclusive for all. And that's kind of the theme of our whole Safe Streets Week here. We have let him be borrowed out and to share him throughout the entire week. We did partner the summit with the Florida Pedestrian and Bicycle State Safety Coalition meeting, also in the same location. So as that 2-day meeting wraps up at noon, we'll quickly reset the room at 1 o'clock for the summit. So many of our coalition members from all walks of life all over the state have been invited to participate and stay and join the conversation. Our partners and land use buddies over at the Downtown Partnership and Plan Hillsborough are jumping in the show too. So the Downtown Partnership has borrowed Gil Penalosa as part of their downtown debriefing series. This is not a redundant conversation. You will not see Gil repeating topics. They all mesh together, but they've all been targeted and be unique. So there's a lot of school focus at the Pedestrian Coalition. There's going to be a lot of parks and public places focus at the Downtown Partnership debriefing. Of course, it's going to be Safe Streets for All at this summit. And then Plan Hillsborough is hosting Gil and a guest speaker that's been flown in and sponsored by Walk by Tampa from Families for Safe Streets. Jessica Reiser-Hart is coming in, and it's going to be a community conversation with those national leaders. And there will be victim dedications at all of our events too. So a lot going on, very economical and affordable. It's only a whopping $15 for you in the audience that are public servants. So anyone from a public agency, it's only $15. Students also $15. If you're from the private sector or general public, we have only a $25 fee to attend. There's a separate fee and registration for the mobile workshop. So that's a lot going on. I hope you'll join us for many or all of the Safe Streets Week activities, in particular the Gulf Coast Safe Street Summit on the 9th. So get your registrations in. It's all on the website, planhillsborough.org/GCSSS for short for Gulf Coast Safe Street Summit. So all right, I threw a lot at you. I hope I covered it all. I'll take questions if anybody has them.
It doesn't look like we have any. Thank you, but thank you for the info. Hopefully that's a well-received event.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other old or new business to discuss? All right, with that, I believe we are adjourned. See you next month.
Go register.
There's flyers on the outside if you're interested. Thanks, Jen. Well, maybe.